Okay, so what happens next? Hey, we have another top hat question. Is thyroid hormone hydrophobic or hydrophilic? Alright, let's see the responses. So, it seems most of you said hydrophobic, some of you said both, some said hydrophilic. So, thyroid hormone is hydrophobic. Yeah, it's lipid soluble. But so that's the interesting thing. Remember that amino acids and proteins are generally water soluble. That's why thyroid hormone is very interesting. It's one of those that starts off as amino acids, but ends up behaving more like a steroid, even though it's not made from cholesterol like a steroid. So it's kind of like, again, it's like someone who grew up in a very who grew up into a family of scientists and they end up joining an artist colony. They grow up in a different environment and end up doing something totally different. And then so let's go back to our browser. All right, so this is why it's very interesting. So there is a transporter for thyroid hormone, but it can diffuse across plasma membranes as well. So thyroid hormone is made from amino acids, which are generally soluble in water, but thyroid hormone, it's fat soluble, it's hydrophobic. Now this is interesting. So notice that thyroid hormone is diffusing across this plasma membrane and also being actively transported as well. But or I shouldn't say actively transported, it's also being transported as well. But it's also being absorbed and passing through from the cytosol into the nucleus of the cell, where you have all the DNA, and then all this DNA has genes, and this receptor activates those genes. And that's why I want you to know in general. So again, this receptor, especially what we call nuclear hormone receptors, they're one located in the nucleus eventually, and they turn on genes and regulate genes. So that's what you have here. You have DNA being activated or inactivated, and some change in cellular activity due to proteins being made. Now, thyroid hormone transport is, again, thyroid hormone starts out as amino acids but ends up behaving more like a steroid. That's why I don't like classifying thyroid hormone as either monoamine, peptide, or steroid. It's kind of its own thing. It's kind of its own special case. Now, again, this is why it doesn't quite. I won't ask you which of the three categories it belongs to because it just acts different in the end. But the interesting thing about thyroid hormone is it not only has receptors inside the nucleus, and not only does it affect DNA, it also affects this little cellular structure right here. So there are some receptors over here. And what is this? So what do we see here? Hey, let's go to Top Hat. Riddle me this. Blank is the powerhouse of the cell. And I have to run up the whole time. I think everyone got this pretty much correct. So some variant of what do we have here? Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Again, like you've probably seen so many of those like memes and whatnot about it. So yeah, mitochondria. Everyone knows mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, right? So mitochondria, powerhouse of the cell. So you've probably seen all of these different memes talking about that. But why is it? So again, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, but why is it the powerhouse of the cell? So again, we know it's the powerhouse, but why? Well, this is the interesting thing. The major reason why comes down to three letters. ATP, which is, again, a chemical that for many of the processes that need energy in your cell and chemical processes and enzymes, ATP is a common chemical used as currency to provide the energy to drive these processes. But there's a little twist to this, so I don't think the book actually covers this. Not only do the mitochondria make ATP, but mitochondria also make a lot of heat. So this is an interesting thing about mitochondria is like when you have your engine in your car, or actually now that we're all going electric, well, if you have a gas engine in your car, does gas all the energy from the gas and fossil fuels get converted to mechanical energy? Well, if you had some physics, you kind of know that not all of these processes or chemistry. These processes aren't 100% efficient. Some of it is lost as heat. Same with mitochondria. The mitochondria burn a lot of nutrients as fuel, and a lot of this energy from these nutrients is transferred to ATP. But this transfer isn't completely efficient in terms of generating no heat. This is why we get the mitochondria generating heat as well. So thyroid hormone pretty much affects almost every cell in the body. And why? Well, you pretty much find mitochondria in almost every cell in the body. There are exceptions. But again, if you have mitochondria in almost every cell in the body, that makes almost every cell in the body a target for thyroid hormone. So ATP production and generating heat are two main features of thyroid hormone's general effects.